Well, there is a really big problem with Scajaquada Creek, and that should be of major concern to all of us here, considering it really is our most visible and vital waterway. The creek flows for 15 miles all the way from Lancaster to Buffalo before it empties in the Black Rock Canal. What is in the water is downright disgusting. Dan Telbach from our Watchdog reporting partner, Investigative Post, shows us the concerning images and what it is doing now to our environment.
Scajaquada Creek has been abused for a century. A 3.5-mile stretch through Cheektowaga and the east side of Buffalo was covered in the 1920s because the water was rank from sewage and industrial pollution. Other stretches have been narrowed, straightened, and buried over the years to control flooding. The creek also has been stripped of most of the wetlands that used to filter pollution, largely in part to accommodate the construction of the Walden Galleria Mall.
The wetlands were seen as nuisance, and they were either filled in or dredged out or paved over.
But the biggest reason the Scajaquada is so badly polluted these days is because Cheektowaga, Buffalo, and to a lesser degree Depew dump more than 500 million gallons of untreated sewage mixed with dirty stormwater into the creek every year. Overflows happen frequently, 283 times in Cheektowaga over 12 months ending this past May. That's more often than any similar sewer system in the state, according to data collected under the Sewer Pollution Right to Know law. I'm here in Cheektowaga, which reported nearly 300 sewer overflows into Scajaquada Creek in a single year. The town's sewer system spews 300 million gallons or more of sewage mixed with dirty stormwater into the creek annually out of pipes just like this near Cheektowaga Town Park. There are 5 similar overflow pipes that empty into the Scajaquada in Buffalo, including this one in Forest Lawn Cemetery that empties an estimated 270 million gallons a year of stormwater and untreated sewage. That's the equivalent of about 400 Olympic swimming pools.
The odor that you get sometimes often is kind of an ammonia smell, typical of a sewer overflow. It's unmistakable.
The creek has an ability to calm and to soothe. And in a cemetery, those are very, very important qualities and aspects. And when one approaches the creek and finds an odor offensive, well, it detracts and actually deters from that soothing, healing, cathartic environment.
This untreated sewage has decimated water quality. Portions of the creek bed are lined with up to 5 feet of sludge that contains, among other things, decomposed human excrement. Other sections are contaminated with PCBs, a toxic chemical banned in the 70s. The water in some spots is teeming with fecal bacteria at levels 20 times above what's considered safe for recreational use.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't take an expert. Anybody can come down here to Hoyt Lake and take a quick look, and visually it's not pretty, and it doesn't take a scientist to tell you that there's some very significant problems with this creek.
A stretch through Forest Lawn Cemetery in parallel to Hoyt Lake is considered a hot spot for avian botulism. In fact, Scajaquada Creek has had more outbreaks than any stream in western New York, killing hundreds, if not thousands, of waterfowl since the 1970s. Infected ducks and geese are paralyzed, their necks droop, and they have been seen walking on their wings after their legs go limp. All these conditions make the Scajaquada the only waterway in the Niagara watershed that the Department of Environmental Conservation has deemed unfit for aquatic life. Oh, you can find some fish in there, but you wouldn't want to eat them.
There's no doubt that Scajaquada is probably a horror story of what not to do to a creek. You can't do much worse to a creek than we have done as a society to Scajaquada.
While much of the pollution may be hard to see, the trash isn't. In Cheektowaga, I picked up this much garbage alongside of the creek in 1 minute. More trash often collects in 2 other spots downstream in Buffalo.
We see garbage cans, we see recycling bins, we see things like sticks and chunks of wood. We would get 50 to 60 shopping carts per cleanup.
Creek water ends up in the Black Rock Canal, whose waters are further contaminated with sewage from 6 overflow pipes that pepper its shoreline. That means boaters and crew teams are navigating in less than pristine waters. It also helps explain why fishermen at Towpath Park at the foot of Hurdle Avenue have told me they're not only catching fish, but condoms.
Oh, that is disgusting. The pollution is awful here, Dan. What's being done about this problem now? What can they do?
Well, the Buffalo Sewer Authority is under an enforcement order with the Environmental Protection Agency to spend $380 million over the next 2 decades. That will significantly reduce the sewer overflows throughout the city, including Scajaquada. But keep in mind, it took 15 years to get to that point. In Cheektowaga, they said the Department of Environmental Conservation has rejected that plan, and that was in 2010, and no one's really done anything to rectify that since then. The town has made some improvements, but it's going to be a long time before we see cleaner water, potentially 2 decades.
So this problem is fixable, though.
It is fixable. I mean, like I said, Buffalo Sewer Authority will be fixing this problem. It's going to be probably 16 years before the biggest impact to Scajaquada Creek happens. But this isn't just a problem with Scajaquada. The size of it, makes it really bad. But there are other creeks in this area.
Others.
Yeah, there's 10 localities in Western New York that are under enforcement order with a DC.
Didn't happen overnight. It won't be overnight to get fixed.
You got it.
All right, Dan. Thank you very much. Dan Telvog from our Investigative Post report. And if you'd like more information on the polluted Scajaquada Creek, it's on investigativepost.org right now. There is also a detailed article in this week's edition of Art Voice.